Hello everyone, it's me, Monica P. Hall, aka Conduit of Healing, and it is time for our weekly messages for the collective. Ready? Let's go. Alright, let's see. This week is going to be another interesting one. If you were with me last week, you know we talked about namaste, not just saying namaste, but living namaste. So we're going to go a little deeper in that direction. The crew's being super interesting lately about things that they would like for us to think about, like for us to consider, like for us to ponder. Okay, but before we get started, if you have been enjoying these messages, please make sure you're subscribing to the channel, and that should be located at the bottom here, so you can just click subscribe. Also feel free to like these videos and comment. And if you're truly enjoying these weekly messages, make sure you're telling your friends, right? Do not keep good news to yourself, because we could absolutely use a lot more good news in our lives, don't you think? All right, so what is the crew saying this week? This week, the message goes as follows, because you know I write this down. Self-care / self-love are intertwined. You cannot choose one without demonstrating the other. Both will prove to be inconvenient and challenging to those who are used to you sacrificing yourself for their comfort. Be prepared for the inevitable test that will come with choosing yourself first. I am so glad we're talking about this because, the concept of self-care and self-love, unfortunately, but fortunately, it's a new concept. The whole idea of taking care of yourself, loving yourself, putting yourself first. I'm slightly sad for us that we're kind of just finally getting to this point where we understand the importance of self-care and self-love. Unfortunately, for at least since I can remember, there's not many cultures or traditions that actually encourage you to put yourself first, that encourage you to love yourself. As a matter of fact, I would say it's quite the opposite. Sacrifice, for your children, sacrifice for your spouse, sacrifice for your community, sacrifice, right? So this whole idea that part of wellness, part of being healthy, happy, people who thrive is we must take care of ourselves first. Yes, if you've been on a plane ever before in your life, and I'm not going to assume that everyone has, because that is not the case, they tell you, right, in case of emergency and we run out of oxygen here in the cockpit, make sure that you are making sure that you have oxygen first before you try to help someone else. I know in a lot of ways that sounds cliche, but it really is true about life. So we have these concepts of self-love and self-care. But what does that really look like on a daily basis? What does self-love and self-care look like on a daily basis? All right, self-love and self-care on a daily basis may look like, a parent who for all intensive purposes, will sacrifice everything, including themselves, for their child. And we're not talking about something like extracurricular activities or making sure that they're healthy or that they're well or that, they're doing their homework and things like that. Just like, watch me do a stupid little dance for the 50th time. Settle this dispute between me and one of my siblings because, they have a toy that I really wasn't paying attention to, and now I want it because they have it. Giving ourselves permission to go, stop, time out. You go settle this dispute. If you don't need this thing right now from me, you don't need my attention right now, I'm gonna go and I'm going to go stare at dust settling on the kitchen table for a little while. There's nothing wrong with a parent taking care of themselves, taking a break, telling their child, no, I cannot do this thing for you right now because, mommy or daddy or whomever needs to go take care of themselves first. And you're okay where you are by yourself for the next 10 minutes so I can kind of catch my breath. And, I'll come in and check in with you, right? There's been this whole, I feel, miseducation that in order to raise a healthy child or have a healthy family, that the parents need to sacrifice their own well-being in doing so. And what's the truth of that, right? What the truth is, we're perpetuating a narrative that says you need to put yourself last in order to put everyone around you first. So what kind of message are you giving to your child? And are you giving them the kind of advice that you want them to live by, should they choose to become parents? Do you want to see your son or daughter self-sacrificing for a child, for a spouse, for a job, for basically anyone who's not them? Is that something you really want to see? Because here's the thing. If you're that person who's constantly self-sacrificing, everyone just expects you to always do that. All right? Now, into the whole concept of self-love and self-care. Self-love says when I'm tired, I need to say I'm tired. Self-care says I need to go take a nap when I really need that nap. Self-love says I'm not going to involve myself in things that will give me anxiety, cause me to feel depressed, cause me to feel bad about myself, lower my self-esteem, so on and so forth, right? That's what self-love says. Self-care says I'm going to remove myself from those kinds of situations, and I'm going to remove those kinds of people from my life. See, this is where the real, shit comes in. When you've decided I'm going to start putting myself first, I'm going to start taking better care of myself, then everyone that you have pretty much trained to believe that you are willing to sacrifice your well-being for them, they're going to come out of the woodwork just to see if you really mean what you say. Right? You've set this boundary. I'm going to learn how to say no. I'm going to learn how to own my fatigue, own my, temporary unhappiness. I'm going to learn how to put my well-being first. I promise you, everyone that has benefited from you putting yourself first is going to come out of the woodwork and they're going to test you. Now, let's just say, for example, they come and say, hey, can you do this for me? I need you to do this for me, for whatever reason. And you can't. For whatever reason, you can't. Maybe you don't feel like it. And therefore you don't really need to give him a reason as to why you don't feel like it. Maybe you're tired. Maybe you have other plans. Maybe your plans are to have no plans and you just want to sit someplace and be a vegetable for that day during that time or whatever. So you say no, right? And you start feeling really good about yourself. Then what happens? Does the person just take your no and then go, okay, sure, I get it, no problem? No, that's not real life. What do? Oh, but I really need your help. Oh, I was really hoping that you could do it. Oh, there's nobody else I can count on other than you. Oh, cry, 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 whine, whine, whine. You're the only one that can help me. Poor me, poor me, poor me, right? You do understand that's the test, right? You do understand that if you're talking about someone else who's self-sufficient, and if you're a parent and it's your child, you should know whether or not you did your job to make sure that your child can do things for themselves and don't need you for everything. Your friends, your spouse, spouses, right? Regardless of who or what your spouse is, there's always that neediness that comes into play when we're dealing with one another. And if you don't want to deal with somebody and your first response to them is no, but in the past all they had to do was lean on you, all they had to do was whine long enough, all they had to do was beg, do you love yourself enough to go, listen, I understand in the past why you think that this would have worked, but honestly, the answer really is no. And I'm going to end this conversation right here. If you're upset, I understand that. When you weren't looking, I went and changed on you. But the answer really is no. And, if you feel like giving a person a reason why, you can. But if you don't, that's okay too. We have to start normalizing the word no with no reason attached to it, especially if you're dealing with adults. I don't need to feel like I need to give you a reason why. The answer is no. There could be lots of reasons, but whether or not I'm sharing that with you, that's my choice. And if you're one of those people that ask, well, why? Okay, so when you ask why, when someone's told you no and you've asked why, then you need to understand whatever they're about to say, you better be ready to take it. The answer might be, you know what, because you never get your shit together and you always need my help. The answer might be, I really just don't feel like dealing with you today. The answer might be, find somebody else because you always call me at the last minute and then you're screaming, I can't. And you make me feel like, I should feel obligated to help you out. Listen, if you're gonna ask that why question, do not be offended by whatever truth is shared with you. Okay? All right, so self-care, self-love. You're working on a job and your boss knows you're about to go on vacation, but they ask you to work late the day before your vacation. Now, this has happened to quite a few of us, right? What is that about? Now, what do you say? Do you say, sure, I'll stay late, and now that, if you had any last minute packing to do, if you wanted to get a good night's sleep before your vacation or whatever, now you've put yourself, potentially in harm's way, especially if you're going to be working late and then you have to maybe get up the next morning and drive, or if you have to get up, early the next morning, catch a flight, or whatever it is, get your kids together, whatever. You're now potentially putting yourself in a situation where your vacation is going to be affected. You might miss the flight. Too tired to drive and therefore have to delay your leaving time for a few hours because you didn't get enough sleep. A lot of things can come into play. So, all right, if the answer is no, how do we say no to a situation like that? We say no to our boss by, saying, hey, you know what? Let me ask my colleague, blah, 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 if they're willing to do this for me, because you know what? I told, as I mentioned before, I'm about to go on vacation, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Jobs don't care about your self-care and self-love. This is why I think mental health has become such a huge subject matter in the last few years. I would say, yes, the pandemic kind of, magnified it, infinitely. But before that, we've been talking about it, normalizing mental health, self-care, self-love, mental health. Are you getting it now? Taking care of yourself, loving yourself means, you know what? Give your brain a rest. Give yourself an emotional reprieve. Eat the right foods. Get some exercise. Stop engaging in toxic relationships. Stop enabling toxic and abusive people. Remove things and people from your lives that are actually hurting you. This is what it means to show self-care, self-love. I know a lot of people lately on social media have been just having to take social media breaks. Now, social media is one of those things, it's a double-edged sword, right? Like most things that deal with human beings. Double-edged sword. Great, we have the ability to talk to each other anywhere in the world at any time. That's wonderful. But at the same time, we have the ability to talk to one another anywhere, anytime, and that's a pain, right? So a lot of people have been taking social media breaks. And I'm sure, as you know, the way that the algorithms work, the whole purpose of these platforms is to just keep you engaged as much as possible. That's kind of what they're there for, to sell ad space, to keep people engaged, to keep people using the platform. That's what it's there for. But you are responsible for recognizing within yourself when you need to step away from everyone, everything. I know some people delete accounts. Some people go inactive for a little while. Some people are constantly doing a cleaning of, the people that they engage with on social media. And just kind of, always kind of taking a measurement. Am I having healthy conversations? Am I having, meaningful discourse with people? Or has it just become like Scream Fest? Has it become really, really toxic? I am a huge advocate of mute, block, and delete if you need to. I'm also a huge advocate of take a break. If you're familiar with me in the slightest, I'm a huge nature girl. I believe in hugging trees. I believe in hiking. I believe in going to the beach and just watching the waves crash to the shore. I believe in quiet in nature and the sound of one hand clapping, in case you don't know what it's. If you actually listen, you can hear it hitting the air. Excuse that corny moment. Even if you don't, it's probably not going to stop. It's only going to get worse with time. But yeah, we have to really start thinking, what does it mean to love myself? Am I in a job that shows me that I love myself? Is it proof that I love myself? Am I in relationships with people that, are reflective of me loving myself? They love me, they cheer me on, they emotionally support me. They're not just calling me when they need something, whether it be money, whether it be energy, whether it be time, or whether it just be they need to talk to somebody other than themselves. Am I surrounding myself with people that ask me how I'm doing before they kind of dump all of their issues onto me because they're just basically looking for free therapy, or they're just looking to talk and to vent without reciprocity? Right? And I think that's something we got to talk about too, right? Do you have those friends or those people in your life that all they want to do is talk about themselves? And when it comes time to talk about you, all of a sudden they got to get off the phone. All of a sudden it's like, oh my God, thank you so much for letting me basically dump on you, emotionally dump. I gotta go. And you're just like, hold on, you didn't even ask me, how are you doing? How's your life? How are things going? You didn't even offer an ear before you just disappeared. Those are not your friends, in case you just haven't figured that out. Anybody who every time they call you, they're talking about themselves, or you could be talking about anything and somehow they end up talking about themselves, and they never ask you about you. These are just selfish people with like narcissistic tendencies, very self-involved. These are not people who are capable of being your friend. And we've all engaged with those kinds of people. I would say that as you practice your self-love and your self-care, you just kind of remove yourself from them or them from you. Basically, you cannot engage anymore. It's just draining. I know people, talked about psychic vampires and what that's like. This is kind of what it's like. Anytime you're talking to these kinds of people who are always needing you, needing an ear, needing a shoulder to cry on, needing you to do something for them, needing you to give them money, needing, but not giving. Yeah, you're dealing with it. You're dealing with a psychic vampire. They're just draining you of life force, and you're, getting more and more tired while you're around them. And you're thinking there's some magic phrase or magic thing I could do that's going to fix them, that's going to fix the situation, and I won't have to deal with this from them ever again. That is not how it works. That is not how these people function. People who just take will always just take. Unless they come to accept there's more pain, happiness, joy, depression, anxiety, highs and lows of life that are experienced by more people than just them. And I know that sounds kind of harsh, but when you start thinking about the value of your time, the value of your energy, the value of your own life experiences, the value of your emotions, if you're going to love yourself, if you're going to take care of yourself, you've really got to start scrutinizing who you're sharing yourself with. And if they are truly willing to share themselves with you. Okay, let's continue. Self-love. All right. Self-love, there's the physical aspect of it. What am I putting in my mouth? Like, am I putting in food, drink, whatever, into my mouth because I'm demonstrating that I love myself? Listen, and I'm not talking about the occasional sweet thing. I'm not talking about the occasional thing. I'm talking about using food or drink or anything in a way that's actually self-destructive in an attempt to self-medicate. All right? Self-medicating is the opposite of self-care and self-love. Anytime we need to medicate, right, we're trying to shut up an aspect of ourselves. We're trying to keep ourselves quiet. We're trying to keep ourselves small. We're trying to hide away from something or hide something either from someone else or from ourselves. So we have to be very clear that when we say we're going to practice self-love, we cannot self-medicate. On the contrary, we have to come up with ways to express these aspects of ourselves that we've been trying to keep quiet, that we've been trying to numb, that we've been trying to avoid. All right. Another thing Crew's telling me right now, right this second. Therapy is self-love and self-care. If you have been struggling with yourself for a very, very long time and you are just tired of trying to figure it out by yourself and you know that you need to speak to someone about what's going on with you, self-love is I recognize I cannot do this by myself. I don't have the tools. I don't have the knowledge. I don't have the education. And maybe right now I don't even have the will. But I can demonstrate enough of self-love to then go out and look for someone to help me get to my next level. This must be normalized. Asking for help must be normalized. Encouraging one another to ask for help must be normalized. Again, if you're going to your friends or whomever seeking guidance that they don't actually have, if you're looking at them and you feel like you're a mess and they're a mess too, they can't help you. Okay? They can't help you. People cannot give you things that they don't have for themselves, okay? I can't offer you anything that I haven't given to myself first. So, if we could just, do our friends a favor and stop putting them in a position of a therapist if they're not qualified to be that. And when I say qualified, I don't just mean from an educational background, right? I also mean from a heart background. I also mean from a sanity background. I also mean from an emotional stability background. Like, if you're a mess and you're hanging out with people who are also a mess, please don't call these people up and ask them to give you the answers to like what's ailing you in life. It's two things. It's just simply not fair to them. And it's definitely not fair to yourself, but it's also not demonstrative of self-love or self-care. If you care about yourself, please go talk to somebody who can actually help you, right? And the thing is like you might have to talk to, as they say, kiss a lot of frogs before you meet the right therapist for you. And I absolutely advocate doing that. If it's not like one size fits all. You may have to talk to quite a few people before you find someone whose message and approach resonates with you. That is self-love. That is self-care. Also, I want to say, self-love is not buying a whole bunch of things to make you feel good about yourself when your spirit and your heart is the thing that's suffering most. So this whole idea of, if I quote unquote look good, I will feel good. I'm sure by now, if you've lived long enough, you have figured out that that is not the case. You can look like $1 million and still, if someone looks deeply into your eyes, they can see that you're sad, lost, angry, hurting, traumatized. It's so funny because we like to dress ourselves up, dress our problems up, rather than actually dealing with our problems. Please recognize that dealing with your problems is self-love. Recognizing your problems is self-care. It means you're paying attention to yourself because you care about yourself, okay? And, there's nothing wrong with fixing yourself so that the rest of us can deal with you, and vice versa, right? When we start really loving ourselves, really start spending time with ourselves, really start analyzing, understanding, forgiving, expressing ourselves, it brings in empathy and compassion for everyone else. If I've been struggling with myself and I see someone else struggling with themselves, I'm going to have compassion. And if they ask me for help, I will be like, okay, this is what I did. This is like, I don't know if it's going to work for you, but this is what I did, right? But only when we start really addressing our own issues, our own shortcomings, as you will, can we then start offering to help one another, right? It's like what I said before about please put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you try to help somebody else. So listen, if you are a person that's a mess and you know that you're a mess, you and I both know you're not qualified to help other people. So even when they ask you, you know what a brave thing to do would be? I cannot help you. Really? Because you just think I'm together. I'm actually over here struggling too. So you know what? I can't help you. Here's what I am going to do. I'm going to go help myself. And so if there's anything I could say to you is like, I'm going to go help myself. I would suggest that you go figure out a way to help yourself. That might be, it's like, listen, I'm going to be looking for a therapist. I'm going to be looking for, a group of like-minded people so I can just kind of talk this thing out. We have to love ourselves enough to say, I'm broken when I'm broken. We have to love ourselves enough to say, I don't know what I'm doing when we don't know what we're doing. We have to love ourselves enough to express the beautiful, the mundane, and the ugly, and then consciously choose to love ourselves anyway. For some reason, we have been taught to feel more ashamed of our flaws and have compassion for our flaws. And I'm just like, if we're going to be ashamed, how are we going to fix it? How are we going to heal it? We have to go, no, that's me, that mess, this mess, whatever, this is me today. But I'm going to choose to first acknowledge it. Yeah, I'm feeling afraid. I'm feeling lost. I'm feeling lonely. I'm feeling fat, I'm feeling skinny, I'm feeling unhealthy, I'm feeling self-destructive, I'm feeling, right? We got to talk about these things. We got to talk about our feelings. And then what's next? Okay, first we're talking about our feelings. Then what do we do next? Okay, what do I do about these feelings? I don't know. Okay, great. We should go find somebody to help us figure out what to do with these feelings. Oh, but what are people going to say? Sorry, when we get to that point of I'm afraid of what people will say, please recognize you're talking about the same people who are not helping you right now. Please recognize you're talking about people who have their own struggles. And honestly, you really would not be doing yourself a service by worrying about what other people are going to think, who also are struggling with self-love and self-care. Like, it's sort of like the drowning, looking at the drowning going, oh my God, do you realize you're drowning? It's like, so are you. Let me know when you know how to swim, and then I will listen to you. I will follow you. So please do not allow shame to keep you from demonstrating and pursuing your self-love. love, and self-care. You are not alone. There are billions of people on this planet. People struggling spiritually, people struggling mentally, people struggling physically, okay? So we have to realize that, one, you're not alone. Two, this is not unique, the challenges of being human, but what we should be endeavoring to change is the shame attached to it, is the suppression of pain, the suppression of feeling lost, the suppression of feeling less than in a moment, right? You probably don't feel like less than all the time. And if you do, I am so sorry. And I really hope you talk to someone about, getting help with that so that you can find at least one thing about yourself to love, which is something I tell my clients all the time. Always start with just one thing that you really love about yourself and build your relationship up from there with yourself. But we have to begin normalizing just authentically, this is who I am. And if there's something that you don't like about yourself, you're only going to address it by being authentic about where you are right now. Self-love and self-care is recognizing who you are, accepting where you are right now, and then planning, how am I going to make myself better? And then once you've planned it, now the doing comes into place. Demonstrating, I really do love myself. Okay? Only you can do that when self-love and self-care really is exactly that. No one can do this for you. No one can carry you. No one can fix you. It's you. It's all you. So yeah, the crew really wanted to talk about that today because we tend to, when these new concepts come up, we tend to kind of sanitize them. We tend to kind of try to make it as palatable as possible. Oh, I'll just read a book on self-love. I'll just go to a workshop and be around a lot of like-minded people. I'll just call somebody like me. Listen, I will even tell you in a reading, in a session, listen, I'm giving you all the information, but that's all I can do. The work is yours. The choice to do the work is yours. The person that has to show up for you every day in order for real change and real transformation to happen, it has to be you. I'm just the messenger. I'm just, the teacher. I'm just, the educator in this particular time. After our time together is over, the work is still going to be left there for you to do. Okay? So do you love yourself? Do you know how to take care of yourself really and truly? Okay, so think about these things. That's going to be our message for the day. I would love to hear your comments about this in the comment section. Make sure if you've enjoyed this little talk we've had about self-love and self-care, that you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next week. Thank you again. Have a great week. Namaste.